Hi, I'm Tyler Parsons, Senior Advisor at the PBL Pathway. Welcome to the PBLx Talks, our first ever culminating experience for seniors for the class of 2023. We're excited to share with you these student talks in which they reflect and share ideas that they have cultivated over the last 4 years around their ideas and interests. Students had creative choice in how they presented, what to include, and where they recorded. At the conclusion of all of the talks in a room, there will be a Q&A session with a host and presenters available for questions. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy this experience.
Close your eyes for a minute and remember back to when you were a teen, how your hormones and brain chemicals would mess with your sleep, studying, eating, and social life. How many of you remember being desperate to be less anxious or struggling to get out of bed in the morning? Many teens, like me, are lucky enough to have access to a therapist and medication, but in an article in Scientific America, D.G. Myers found that despite huge amounts of money spent on psychotropic drugs and psychotherapy, it has not significantly improved levels of happiness and well-being. A study published in the Journal of Affective Disorders found that daily exercise was associated with significant reductions in depression and anxiety symptoms. Another study in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found that mindfulness-based activities were associated with significant reductions in depression, anxiety, and stress. Other research has shown that developing traits like self-directedness, responsibility, living with purpose, and feeling in control are indicators of more frequent positive emotions and mental health outcomes. So, my research showed me that I needed to develop everyday small habits like working out, mindfulness exercises, and meditation, and develop traits so I would feel like I was being successful, had a purpose, and was in control of my own feelings and emotions. But having ADHD and a scattered memory does not allow me to be consistent in developing these habits or traits, often resulting in the opposite feelings, that I had failed once again. There was no way that I would be able to keep my motivation up and be consistent for the 66 days that scientists have found it takes to have a new habit stick. This frustrating feeling led me to start researching how I could help myself develop these habits and traits. My research led me to the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. He wrote about the importance of small incremental changes in behavior for developing lasting new habits. He acknowledges how hard it is for us humans to break old habits and develop new ones. One method he recommends is tracking consistency on a calendar so that you have a visual record of how many days in a row you have been consistent. Having a group of supportive people to keep you on track also contributes greatly to success. You need a lot of patience. He states that, quote, "Habits appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold, and that in the early and middle stages of any quest, there's often a valley of disappointment. To push through these challenges," he suggests, "once your pride is involved, you'll fight tooth and nail to maintain your habits," suggesting that competition can help motivate consistency. He also says that the most practical way to change who you are is to change what you do. This all sounded great to me, but when I looked for technology that could help me remember the steps and motivate me to keep going through those valleys of frustration, I found that most apps only provide bare-bones functions such as calendaring, alarms, and reminders. I knew that I needed more. I decided that I could use my coding skills to develop a mobile app which I am calling Raise. In order to design and build this app, I consulted with app developers and learned that I needed to build wireframes of my ideas, have users test them, get feedback, and be able to iterate many times. I also consulted with professors from the SMC IDX Interactive Technology Department to learn about user experience and interface design. I also took a course through MIT called Inspirit AI to learn how to incorporate AI into Raise so that it could adapt to my progress and growth. Here's a short video on my initial ideas.
In 6th grade, I was diagnosed with clinical depression. I felt like a heavy cloud was weighing me down, and despite medication and therapy, there was no way out. I felt as though I had not been making progress, and over the years, I realized I needed to break old habits and make new ones to truly see change. So I designed a mobile app called Raise. Raise is an innovative mobile app that uses artificial intelligence to create customized daily activities for each individual user based on initial calibration questions. It creates a to-do list with reminders of recommended activities that increase positive neurotransmitters and exercises to build cognitive behavioral therapy habits in between therapy sessions. Raise utilizes a freemium revenue model, so the app can be self-sustaining with basic services freely accessible to users. Raise improves upon online therapy and mental health diagnosis apps by putting the power to lift the cloud of mental health challenges into each individual's hands, starting with my own.
As a result of all this research and design iterations, I've learned how to use no-code platforms to create fast prototypes that I can do user testing and get user feedback with. I look forward to learning more about AI in order to incorporate a computerized therapist-like experience, where the user inputs what they actually do every day, and the AI adjusts the next steps in their plan. This will help keep the content and features novel and make each user's experience customized to their lifestyle, progress, and interest. Just being able to take control of my own mental health has helped me to overcome some of the struggles of being a teenager, pushing through the stress of college applications and the impending doom of having to be an adult. I learned that in order for me to change, I have to be aware of what strengths I have and what strategies and habits I need to build in order to get where I want to go. I'm hoping to learn how to market and get funding for the development of Raise in college as I go to the Ivine and Young Academy at USC to achieve a bachelor's degree in design, technology, and the business of innovation. Thank you.
My name is Jacob Silverman, and today I'm going to share with you my journey towards becoming a concept artist. You might be wondering what a concept artist is. Think back to your favorite movie, TV show, or video game you like to play. Now try to remember an image or look that made that setting unique and stuck with you. Now, that thing had to have been thought of, planned out, and tested by a concept artist. The journey began in my first year of high school when I needed to decide what my adulthood was going to be. To do this, I chose to look back at where I was coming from. I knew that for as long as I could remember, I have had a talent and love of the process of creating something like art. So I wanted to have a career that required my creative potential. But I didn't want to just create art that only existed as one image. No, I wanted to create working, living things, so I took an interest in the process in product design. While I came close to joining that field, it turned out to be more limited than what I imagined. While researching the art process, I took a liking to concept art. I thought that process was more imaginative and customizable, and the end product was lifelike and mesmerizing. Like you, I too have immersed myself in the film and TV. I love how easy it was for them to create worlds just through their visuals. That is why I want to become a concept artist, specifically for those. I have taken a liking to mechanical design because of the technicality, the solid aesthetic, the inner mechanics, and the functionality. I am also learning how to draw humans because I have also taken an interest in character design, facial expressions, and action poses. For the last 4 years, I have been using a digital art app called Procreate to do my art. It is like Photoshop but on an iPad, and I can use a special pen on it that can simulate pressure strokes and brush angles. I can also work with several images on one piece. Still, I like doing pencil sketches for their simplicity and ease. I have also gained some skills in 3D modeling with a software called Blender 360. I find that with 2D modeling, I can add every intricate detail into something and give it motion to make it more real than it ever could be. But I still prefer 2D drawing for its simplicity, and don't need to go through 5 hours of YouTube tutorials to learn how to use it. With what I've learned, I now know how to come up with an idea, create it from the inside out, and give it definition. Through the past 4 years, I have been able to put effort into gaining the skills and reaching for the place I want to be as an adult. Even if there are more struggles in my future, I am still proud of the path I've taken and the experiences I've had.
For most people, when they think of a tree, a city is usually the last thing that comes to mind, or certainly not one of the first. And that's for good reason. For most of us, we think of, a woodland or a forest or that sort of thing. But really, the place with the most trees that we're around most of the time is our cities. For example, Santa Monica is home to over 35,000 urban trees within 150 to 250 different species, all with their distinct benefits and uses, and additionally, distinct visual impressions. Urban trees have been noted to have marked increases in the physical and mental well-being of citizens of communities. In addition, they provide carbon sequestration, air and water filtration, as well as many other benefits, including reduced energy costs during periods of high use, like the summer, for example. So if you plant a tree in front of a building during the summer, the tree's shade will be able to help reduce help reduce cooling costs and that sort of thing for houses and for businesses as well. For me personally, the reason I'm interested in trees began with urban foraging, began with spoon carving. So the reason I'm interested in trees mostly is spoon carving. And now, what is spoon carving? It's spoon carving. When you carve a spoon. So it's deceptively complex in that it's not just the simple carving of a spoon, because it involves learning about the trees around you and how they work together to create this piece of functional art. And it's been around for thousands of years, starting, in the British Isles, northern Scandinavia, even going into Morocco and Egypt, ancient China. Everywhere has had some version of what is the humble wooden spoon. And one of the reasons that I've become interested in urban trees specifically is because obviously here in LA County, we aren't surrounded by lush woodlands. We have some national forests and that sort of thing, but I'm not able to take wood from those forests. So instead I turn to the urban trees around me. You might be thinking, why can't you just go buy wood? But one of the key tenets of spoon carving is the use of freshly cut or green wood, because it lends itself much better to the use of bladed implements for carving, which is keeping with traditional spoon carving traditions like sloyd, which is kind of an educational practice in Finland, and involves the use of hand tools to further your connection with the material and that sort of thing. And so when I was searching for a topic for my senior thesis project, I stumbled across, first I had this interest in urban forestry because of my spoon carving career. And then I stumbled across something called the Urban Orchard Project in the city of Southgate. So the city of Southgate is primarily composed of post-industrial land. It's near the LA River, but most importantly, there is not a lot of green space, and there's a lot of food insecurity in Southgate. So the city of Southgate, along with TPL, so Trust for Public Land, which is a nonprofit organization that has worked with 5,000 plus conservation and greening efforts across the country. And so they work together to create about 7 acres of publicly accessed land with 200 fruit trees, a wetland, community gardens, etc. And so I decided I wanted to replicate that in Santa Monica here. So that's what I did. Earlier today, me and this SMM-USD Sustainability Manager, Austin Toyama, and Sebastian Purdy, you might know him, we came together, and Austin and I had been collaborating for a number of months, and we finally got the approval to buy these plants. And we planted them here in order to give students, faculty, and families access to fresh fruit and allow them to kind of learn about food production, where fruit comes from, and that sort of thing. So we planted a nectar plum, a tangerine, a fig, and an apple. And they're all drought-resistant varieties, so they'll be able to tolerate the heat. They won't require too much water. And although I want to acknowledge that because Santa Monica is we have a lot of urban greenery, and we are lucky in that there is not a lot of food insecurity here. And so I want to acknowledge that my project, yes, it's smaller, so it won't be as impactful as the city of Southgate, and yes, because it's not targeting such an underprivileged community, it will also not be as impactful in that own way. But one of the goals for me was to be able to do it here, somewhere where it's easier and more accessible within this time frame, without knowing if it would actually go through. And then hopefully in the future, future seniors will be able to take this project and bring it out into the greater community.
Look at this picture. What do you see? What is your initial reaction? When I look at it, I see a bright, happy little girl. She is smiling and playing. She spends her days without a care in the world. She is taken care of and loved. She is ecstatic when she wakes up each day. She loves going to school to color and play with her friends. But what she loves even more is to come home to her parents. And to them, she is their pride and joy. But this is not her life. Yes, she is playing and smiling, but once the game has ended, her bedroom is her only safe place. Her reality isn't rainbows and sunshine. Her reality consists of court dates, custody battles, neglect, and malnourishment. At age 6, she is a victim of mental and physical abuse. This little girl is me. My name is Ornella Wolf, and I grew up in an abusive household. As I have grown up, I have turned my trauma into a passion of helping educate people on the importance of mental health. I have faced neglect, abuse. I want to educate people and parents on not only the importance of mental health in themselves or their children, but the consequences if not taken care of properly. Over the course of my senior year of high school, I started taking an online Yale course on positive psychology. Now, if you're not familiar with positive psychology, it is a branch of psychology dedicated to the study of human flourishing and happiness. In addition to that, I was fortunate enough to find an internship in Malibu focusing on the mental health and well-being of high school students. I even designed multiple mental health pamphlets in hopes that after I graduate, they will be read and used by other students struggling with mental health. My passion continued to grow as I learned more about mental health. I found myself wanting to teach others more about it. For example, in my research, I learned that not only are 20% of teenagers reporting to have seriously considered suicide in the last year, but approximately 9% of teenagers say that they have made attempts. And even worse, 37% of teenagers right now have reported having poor mental health. Mental health in teenagers is at its lowest point that it has been in years, and it's not just teenagers, it's everyone. Mental health conditions are increasing worldwide. There has been about a 13% rise in mental health cases since the last decade. So now we ask the question, why are people, more specifically teenagers, struggling so much with their mental health? From my personal experience, a lot of it comes from our parents. I have never had supportive or understanding parents when it comes to dealing with mental health struggles. To be quite honest with you, I was dealing with anorexia for years, and my mother never believed me. She saw my weight loss, she saw my absence from the dinner table, she saw me beg her for help. So I thought, it cannot just be me. I thought if this is affecting my own mental health so much, then maybe this is what is affecting other teenagers like me. And it was just that. All of my friends, my family, and the majority of people I connected with began to tell me about their mentally abusive parents. In fact, as of 2022, 75% of parents are mentally abusive towards their children. In the United States, it is proven that 1 in 7 children have experienced neglect or abuse within the last year. And you must take into consideration that this number is most likely underestimated because most cases are not reported and the abuse continues. So why are our parents doing this? Why do they claim that they know better, that we are fine? Well, as unfortunate as it is, a major cause of parental denial of mental health within their children comes from embarrassment, guilt, and denial. Many parents have too much pride to get their children the help they need because they didn't experience this as a teenager, or that they wouldn't want others to know that their child is struggling mentally. Another major cause is the fact that some parents know that they might have contributed to the cause of some harmful pain inflicted on their own child and aren't interested in taking that responsibility or learning what they can do to help them in the future. Taking accountability is an incredibly difficult task for older generations and only causes more harm to our youth when not done so. Now, we know why parents might feel this way, but how does it affect us? Let me give you an example. A student who has a stable or who has positive mental health, it is much easier for them to focus in class, get homework done, have a much more productivity and motivation in class and outside of school. Having a positive mindset makes it easier to build friendships, relationships, and it overall increases one's chances of becoming successful. Teenagers who have positive mental health and who are in tune with their feelings and identity also have a much higher rate of transitioning into adulthood much easier. The information about the world that you learn as a teenager is ultimately what shapes you into the adult that you become. Now, a teenager who has poor mental health, who is not receiving the help they need, and have those parents who don't have the energy to listen or to learn how to help them, have a much harder time with motivation of any sorts. Your mental health is what guides you to explore and create, and a teenager who is struggling mentally has no will to do so. Mental health that is not taken care of properly can result in unemployment, substance abuse, incarceration, poor quality of life, suicidal thoughts, and as devastating as it is, can end in suicide. So to any parents who are listening to this, I strongly encourage you to listen to your child. And I mean really listen. Mental health is no joke, and even if you don't understand it, even if it has never happened to you, you must remember that it is torture for people who are struggling to not feel supported or cared for. Listen to them. Listen to your friends and to your family, and listen to your own body when you feel like you need a break. Learn about healthy and harmless ways to cope with pain, whether that is taking a bath, meditating, painting, walking, or cooking. It does not matter. As long as you are learning and allowing your brain to take a break from the stress and anxiety that life throws at you. Learn how to put your mind at ease, because if what you are doing makes you feel okay, makes you feel like you are taking care of yourself, then it is absolutely necessary. It is so important to take care of the people around you, but remember to take care of yourself. I have lived a life where support was not given to me. I have lost parents and friends and went through what felt like hell, but I learned to be independent young. I learned how to fend for myself. I learned the route to school in elementary My feet were in pain with nothing to eat for lunch, and I put on a face every day for years so that no one would have any reason to believe that I wasn't okay. But that was the truth. I wasn't okay. In fact, I was dying inside. I had to learn how to make myself feel like me again. And I did. I found things that made me happy inside, that made the pain easier. This is why I strive to teach others on how incredibly important mental health is. You have no idea what someone may be experiencing, and we need to be conscious of how we can help ourselves and others. I know that if I had the pamphlet that I created, I would have definitely felt more comfortable knowing that other people my age were experiencing the same things as I was. That is why I created the pamphlet, for other students to see it, read it, and find ways to help themselves if they are struggling. I know it would have helped me if I had it at the time, and my goal is to help those students take care of themselves. So I hope that something I said today sticks with you, and you are able to walk away with something that helps you see the world differently. If you are a kid or a teenager, I understand that it's hard, but I encourage you to tell someone about how you are feeling, whether that's your mom, your dad, your aunt, grandma, or teacher. You will find your way back. Parents, while I encourage you to do the same, please learn to listen to your child if they feel safe enough to come to you. And if they don't, make an effort so they know you care. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Pierce, and I'm here to talk to you about my journey into construction working. At the beginning of this whole interest thing, I was always not into construction, but instead into animation wise. That was towards the beginning of 9th grade. The only reason why is because at that time I was really into animation and I liked it very much, so I decided why not give it a try. I only was able to do possibly like one animation, but it was only a quick 3-second clip that I'm going to show you right now. It wasn't really that good, but I mean, it was something that I started off with. Then I didn't really, after the 3-second clip, it was just something I kind of found challenging in a way, and I decided not to do it no more. Then after that, I moved on to modeling. Modeling wise, it's different because I just had to make a model instead of having to do a whole entire animation on it. Here are some of my models that I've done in my 10th grade year towards that. And then, yeah, some of them are pretty bad, some of them are okay. It's whatever. But then I came to the realization that both of those were something I never really enjoyed at all. They were something that seemed way too challenging for me, and then I decided that it's something that I don't want to do. So I decided to go toward, since I went to my 11th grade year, I decided to go with civil engineering, something that I've always looked into back then before high school, and decided to why not pursue it and stop like hiding it behind me and just actually go into it and do more research on it. So that's what my 11th grade year, first semester was, is just doing research on civil engineering, seeing if I liked it or not, and seeing what I can learn from it. Then I moved on to architecture in my second semester because it's something that I wanted to do, because I decided instead of going to civil engineering, I wanted to start planning out stuff instead and started making designs and stuff and started drawing it on board. So I started focusing on that, and then those two were something that I decided, yeah, ain't gonna happen. Now that I'm in my 12th grade year, I actually finally came to the realization and conclusion that I decided to do construction working instead, because I always wanted to work with wood. I always wanted to do woodworking stuff, build houses and all this stuff, and like basically help the community out there. So that's something that I've always wanted to do, and I decided to start doing that. I have started going to some sites that you're going to see right here. Those sites are basically fudge, uh, no, I gotta think. Those sites are basically from Habitats for Humanity. Basically, for those sites, it's basically a place where you go volunteer and whatnot and help out there. It's something that I also wanted to do. Is volunteering was one of the things I also wanted to do to pursue my interest. So basically, to get experience in a way, I decided to volunteer, and it was actually pretty fun. I actually really enjoyed it. I learned a lot from it. I learned how to use some tools out there that I didn't even know how to use. So it was really fun for me to go out there and actually be hands-on. Then I decided to go to look into some colleges. I looked into LA Trade Tech School, which basically is a school that's also dealing with construction work in a way. They have tons of programs out there that teach you a lot about it, and then it's something that I'm looking into. These are some photos I took on the trip, and then I went ahead and also worked on this project with my dad that it's basically been an ongoing thing for a long time now, and it's something that I actually wanted to show as one of my products. So this is the houses that we've been working on, and it's something that we're just doing behind our house as a little like fun project in a way that we were allowed to do. That is also giving me experience because my dad allowed me to do that because he knew I wanted to do this for a long time. And then he's like, you know what, just come work in the house in the back with me. He taught me a lot from what I learned, and it's something that I actually was really enjoying and got to learn a lot from. I know there's like a lot of people out there that are probably wondering why did it take you 4 years exactly to find out what you wanted to do for your interest, but it's because not everything happens really fast. There's always some times where people change their mind last second, and it's something that just happens to a lot of people. So for me, because I wanted to be an animator at first, I thought that was a really good choice. It wasn't really, because I sucked at it at the end of the day, and it's something that I decided to move away from. I should have gone with construction working at least the first time, because then I could have spent those 4 years focusing on one interest and getting an internship and all that, rather than just switching nonstop back and forth over and over again. So in other words, not everything is going to happen first sight. You basically are going to run into problems here and there, and you are going to change your mind, but sooner or later it's going to click to the point where you're going to know what you want to do. For me, I guess that was just my whole entire high school year, was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and it's something that I've now come to realization, like, yeah, some people should actually there's actually going to be a lot of people that relate to me in this sort of way, so I guess them hearing what I have to say about this might give them a realization. In other words, I decided go on with my project. I've enjoyed it very much, and I think all the projects that I've done so far and stuff, it got me starting to like this more and more. I was at sometimes parts where I was going to quit and stuff and maybe not wanting to do it, but I told myself never to quit and just keep going on, because then if I quit, then it's just going to be the same as before. It's just going to switch nonstop, and it's not something that I wanted to do. So I just kept going along with it. I enjoyed it from there on. I love working with Habitat for Humanity. Hope to work for them again sometime soon, and I hope to go to LA Trade Tech to pursue this interest even more.
There was once a little girl who was unable to do everyday activities and stuttered. Everyone thought she was unable to do things on her own. I was that little girl when I was 3 years old. With the help with occupational therapy, I was able to overcome this obstacle. I was lucky enough to be born into a family who was able to afford occupational therapy. I am Hispanic, and my family and heritage is in Mexico. I have spoken with many of my family members who work with children in Mexico who do not have access to OT, which is also known as occupational therapy, because of the lack of trained therapists, advocates, resources, and the cultural stigma. What if I told you that children in North America do not have access to therapeutic services that would allow them to do everyday things like eat, put on shoes and socks, and focus on learning and playing with other kids? Limited resources and accessibility to these services can cause a delay in the growth and development of a child. OT should be a fundamental service for all children, no matter their circumstances. In rural communities all over the world, it is challenging to obtain and sometimes does not exist. The number of children with developmental disabilities who need occupational therapy is rising because of the environmental factors in rural areas and the lack of access to OT, contributing to the increase of the overall number of children in need of OT. Recent estimates in the United States show that 4.3% of children under the age of 18 had a disability in 2019. In Mexico, that number is almost double, at 7.5%. Research shows that if children who need occupational therapy do not receive services, the overall culture and society will experience higher levels of incarceration, crime, and unemployment. In rural areas of Mexico, the cultural stigma and the lack of trained professionals have limited access to OT services. The stigma in Mexico about mental health and disabilities has been present for years and still to this day can present a challenge to discuss between family members. Individuals with mental health issues and/or disabilities may encounter social exclusion, discrimination, and oppression in many different areas of their lives. All of this research led me to start an organization that is going to provide cheap and accessible culturally relevant occupational therapy books to nonprofit organizations in Mexico that provide food and other necessities to these families. The first product I am creating is this book teaching children and parents about occupational therapy and activities they can do based on the skills they lack. I was able to see what activities are beneficial because of my internship at the Therapy Place for Kids clinic. I was able to observe children to do different core, hand strengthening, drawing, and cutting skills. I saw the therapist demonstrate how to draw a line from one point to another and watched the children struggle holding the pencil and began scribbling all over the paper. I also saw another child who was experiencing difficulty with speaking to new people and being flexible. After many sessions of observation, the child began to speak to me and make eye contact because they were gaining trust and recognized me, as well as playing with the toy the therapist offered rather than the one they fixate on all the time. This is just the first book. I aspire to make an entire series. I also want to create an opportunity for young adults in Mexico to encourage them to become occupational therapists and have volunteers that will work for nonprofit organizations. How can you help? There are many organizations like Teleton, also known as CRI, which is Children's Rehabilitation Institute, Teleton USA, a nonprofit organization offering comprehensive rehabilitation services, as well as Gabriel's Foundation, which was created for my uncle who passed away and left an impact in the lives of children and elders in need in Gomez Palacio, Durango, Mexico, where my family's from. They're open to donations and support. It is not how big the problem may be. It is the way you approach it that makes the change prosperous. One person can begin a positive change and leave an impact on others to continue what was started. In loving memory of Gabriel Martinez.
Hello, my name is Cooper Ott. I'm a senior here at Santa Monica High School's PBL pathway. I'd like to welcome you to the iStudio. The iStudio is where we house all of our maker tools where you can use for either your academic or your personal projects. For example, we have our large format printer here and our Glowforge laser cutter. I've spent about majority of my time in this room over the past 4 years, and I've gotten to know all of these different machines very well. And so for my senior thesis project this year, I decided to run a coding workshop for 2 9th graders, Ryan and Christopher, and I taught them how to use Scratch. I found that when I was teaching them Scratch, I would often answer their questions with another question, trying to let the creative juices flow on their own. And often I feel like since I'm a STEM, I prefer math and science more than humanities, people tend to think of me as more logical and not as creative. However, I would feel that STEM actually has just as much creativity, if not more, required as humanities. One example was when I was working with Ryan. We were trying to figure out how to actually, what game she wants her puzzles, because she was making a choose your own adventure escape room style, and we needed to figure out different puzzles we could do for it. And so we ended up even playing different escape room games to try seeing like how we can incorporate and create our own puzzles based off of that. When I was running these coding workshops, I was often getting pulled aside by the Project Invent 10th graders to help them with either a coding project they were doing or something else for the project. Because they're creating a band that would link to your Dexcom if you have diabetes, that would allow you to read your blood sugar easily on your band without being invasive. And so I worked with them whenever they had a question on the LilyPad, for example, which is a type of Arduino that they use, which basically allows you to use conductive thread to combine different electronics onto fabric. They often were having trouble with the fabric was actually conductive itself, and they were short-circuiting the wires. Also, when they were trying to 3D print their band, I had to help them with the flexible filament. And it was a very unique experience, because it was the first time I've ever actually felt flexible filament like this. And we've had to come up with a variety of different solutions to try figuring out how we can get it to actually work. One of the big parts that we needed to try to figure out creative solutions for was the actual display. We were struggling with getting the display to actually show what we wanted to. And so a solution that we came up with was to actually not use the software that the display has, and to manually control the pixels on the screen, so that when you hit a button, it would just display whatever image we wanted it to. Like, for example, this just is 165 and a smiley face, because that's like your blood pressure is normal. And so after working with the software and running into so many problems with that, we decided to control each pixel. But in order to do that, we had to create code that would take an image that we had and turn it into its binary code of the picture. And we actually were able to use AI to help figure out how we would convert each pixel into a binary number. And so that was a very, definitely, especially now in today's society, using AI to help you with a school project is starting to frowned upon, even though it's more like an emerging technology, like some of the stuff we have in this room, like the Glowforge and the large format printer. And so we were able to try to think a little bit more outside the box to create a workaround for this project. And so when we were working with them, I realized how important it is to think creatively, even with technology. Like when you're coding or trying to make a device, you need to figure out ways. If something doesn't work, there's a million different ways of trying a different way, and the only way to figure out the right way is to fail fast and try figuring out, okay, did this work? No, okay, let's try it. And so through this process, I've tried teaching them, if something is not connecting, for this thread, just try figuring out and troubleshoot exactly which part is not working, and to either bypass it or trying to figure out a solution in order to make it work.
Hello, my name is Matthew Gonzalez. I am an artist, and I am also a student at the PBL. Before we begin, raise your hand if you are also an artist, or are the creative type. This can include visual artists like drawing and illustration, or other skills like sculpting and cooking. Alright, now raise your hand if you have a skill that you want to learn, but don't know how you can learn it. If you're like me, then you also have goals, projects that you want to do, and dreams that you want to chase. But you're scared. You could be scared that you're not good enough at what you do, or that you'll even be able to pursue your passions as they might not be able to fit in with your daily life, or maybe you're not even sure where to start. I was in a very similar situation before, and I am here to tell you that it doesn't have to stay that way. During the first 2 years at this school, the projects that I did never really amounted to much. Both of them just sort of ended up being essentially character design studies. The first was where I tried to make a video game where each enemy was based off of some sort of effect of pollution, like climate change or ocean acidification. The focus for my second year project was the concept for a comic book, a project that I still want to pursue at some point, but I don't think I'll be able to do so at the moment. While these were helpful to myself, both of them suffered from the same problem. I didn't have the skills necessary in order to have my ideas come to fruition. It was then when I realized that even if I kept on improving myself, it wouldn't even matter if I didn't do anything to show off that improvement. In response to this, I decided that next year I would share my work with the world. In order to do this, I had opened up multiple social media accounts where I put my artwork, and a YouTube account where I mostly make video essays on video games. I still use my art in these videos by drawing thumbnails as well as artwork that I use in the actual video. I plan to use these channels in order to promote future projects when I become more well known, as this could serve to promote my project through word of mouth. I have 2 personal projects that I plan on making into real products. One of these projects is a trading card game, and the other is a video game. Now, I will admit, I don't have any skill necessary for everything that is required to complete these projects. That is why I decided to not continue with that project from a few years ago. Fortunately for me, in our modern times, we have access to online resources such as this online course for understanding Unreal Engine's blueprints. Now, while that is specifically for learning the skills to making a video game, there are whole websites dedicated to offering courses on any skill you want. There is literally an infinite amount of tutorials on YouTube for a similar purpose. We live in an age where you can not only share your passion but profit from it. The only thing that's limiting you is your willingness to learn and improve. Over the past 4 years at this school, I have steadily grown my skill set to include abilities such as illustration, sewing, and even video editing for the video that you see right now. I have even been teaching myself how to use a skill that I would have never figured out before, and to pursue a dream that I never thought could be achievable by myself. And while I haven't gained that much proficiency in this skill yet, I have the resources available so that I can learn them, and I will never give up on learning. And that's sort of the point that I'm trying to make here. We live in a world where people like me have the ability to create an entire world at our fingertips. It can be a business that you've always wanted to open up, or it can be a story that you've always wanted to tell. The world that you want to make is already yours. What are you willing to do to make it?